Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Cradle News Roundup, coming to you live, your one-stop shop for all news West Asia. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Esteban Carrillo, and of course, as usual, I'm joined by my friends and colleagues, Karim Shami and William Van Wagenen, joining us today. So glad to have you on today, Will. And of course, before we start, just a friendly reminder, make sure to hit that like button if you haven't yet. We need to get this video out to as many viewers as possible. We need to fight against the YouTube algorithm. Of course, subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. Check out the memberships. And above all, in the description below, you can find a link that will take you directly to our Patreon page where you can become a direct supporter of the Cradle. If you haven't yet, please consider it. We will really, really welcome your support. Well, guys, today, unfortunately, we have to start with very sad news. The assassination, Israel's assassination of legendary Al-Manar TV reporter Ali Shoaib, and Al Mayadeen correspondent Fatma Ftuni, and her brother as well, photojournalist Mohammed Ftuni, who were killed earlier today in the south of Lebanon during a double tap strike by the Israeli military, who has claimed that Ali Shoaib was a member of Hezbollah's Radwan elite Radwan unit, and although in their statement they also essentially admit that they killed him for reporting in the south of Lebanon. Our hearts go out to their families, of course, and to everyone they leave behind, and our complete and utter condemnation to the invading Zionist army that has made it a habit of killing journalists for doing their job. In Gaza, they have killed over 260 journalists since the start of the genocide. In Lebanon, at the very least, they have killed 22. In Yemen, in a single day, they killed about 30 journalists. In Iran, we saw them bomb the Islamic Republic's broadcasting agency as it was on air. Hell, currently we have there's a bounty placed on the head of Professor Mohammed Marandi. I mean, there really is no end. And just to remind everyone, for 3 years in a row, the Committee to Protect Journalists has named the Israeli army as the leading cause of death for journalists worldwide. And in their latest report, they particularly highlight that Israel was responsible for 2/3 of all deaths of journalists, all killings of journalists in 2025 and 2024. This is not a mistake. This is a pattern. This is simply how they operate. And I think, maybe Karim, you can give us just a bit more context about who exactly were the journalists that we lost today.
Yeah, first we have to acknowledge that the Israeli army, they released a statement. They said that we killed him, and they said that he's with the Radwan force. And the Radwan force, according to the Israelis, they are a bunch of young Lebanese fighters that fight like nobody fights. You know what I mean? And they are like the special forces of Hezbollah. And now they are claiming that Ali Shoaib was one of them, which is insane. It's insane. That's one. Second, Ali Shoaib was a very respectful person in Lebanon as a journalist and as a human being. He was a very kind person, and also, of course, he was trustworthy. He's the most trusted Lebanese journalist in the south, at least. Meaning that if anybody, just give an example. Sometimes maybe a journalist or a colleague he tells me A, B, C, D happened. Usually I ask him, from where did you know that, or who's the source? When he says Ali Shoaib, I said we will say okay, meaning that this is 100% true. This guy confronted, as we are seeing now in the video, this is a very famous video of him. Here he was on the border, and the soldiers behind him are Israeli soldiers, and he confronted them at the border, and we can see the translation in the video. He's a very brave man, and he was a very trustworthy man, and everybody knows him in Lebanon. The enemy and the people that are with Hezbollah or supports the resistance. He was a very good person, to be honest, and it was a shock. First, it was a shock because I thought he was in the front lines, he was covering, and a missile hit him. But no, what happened is that the Israelis targeted him, and Fatma survived. Yani the news that we have that Fatma survived and she exited the vehicle, and then another missile hit the car, and then the ambulance came, and also a third and fourth missile fell on the people that were trying to help her, and many people died. So that's a very sad thing. And what I was saying, what made me to get surprised. Usually, when the Israelis do that, they will say that by mistake we will open a file in the situation. You know what I mean? When they did in Shireen Abu Akli and others, and you said they killed hundreds of soldiers, of journalists. But usually what happens is that they say we will open a case, so they will not face any problems in the UN or against any organization. But this time, no, they released a statement officially in many different languages that we killed this guy, and they were very happy. And if you remember 2 days ago, for our viewers, I said it. I said usually the social media of the Israeli army is not that active. They are very, very active recently because of what's happening in the south of Lebanon. And they are trying to counter the losses that they are facing. And eventually, I think this is one of the counterattacks that they are doing, because it's clear there is no bank of targets anymore for the Israelis. They are just killing civilians, bombing bridges, and now they are killing journalists, which is insane, and nobody is stopping them, of course, yani. And still, the Lebanese government, they think that if they talk to the United States, somebody in the United States will talk to Trump and will tell them, no, please stop this. It's insane.
It's, I mean, again, just to reiterate, complete condemnation or complete support, of course, to the teams of Al-Manar, of Al-Mayadeen, and everyone else, as well as their teammates at the Cradle, who are, in no uncertain terms, risking life and limb in the face of this genocidal army. There's really no other way to describe it. I mean, and I want to just highlight one last thing, and it's, of course, the way that Western media has chosen to report on this news, which is, disgusting, to say the least. This is a headline from the Financial Times. I guess if you label anyone as pro-Hezbollah, as pro-Iran, as pro-resistance, then they deserve to die, right? They deserve to be killed. And the Israeli entity, it's, right? No responsibility for them, no responsibility. I don't know, William, if you have any thoughts about this, or maybe we can just continue with the other topics that we have for today.
Well, no, I mean, I guess just to say that, of course, it is deliberate. The strikes in Lebanon, they know exactly who they're killing. During the last war when I was there, I remember lots of instances of just cars on the highway or driving through the mountains, even, far away from southern Lebanon, where like the fighting was taking place. There would just be a car that would be targeted by a drone, and the 2 or 3 people inside would be killed. These are very deliberate strikes. When they kill people, they know exactly who they're killing. So they knew that they were killing Ali. They knew they were killing Fatima. They know that they're killing these the rescuers, the paramedics that are coming. They've killed, I don't know the number, but it's more than 40, if I remember right.
I think today they killed 7. That's what I saw just today.
So even before today, it was around 40. Yeah. So it is all very deliberate. And I remember from the last war too, in October 2024, there was like a guest house specifically for journalists that was in South Lebanon, but it was outside of any of the evacuation zones. And the journalists, there was like maybe 20 journalists there from many different channels, Arab channels, but also from Al Mayadeen, also from Al Manar. And they had given the coordinates of this guest house for journalists to the UN peacekeepers to send to the Israeli military so that they would know not to bomb this place. And I guess it's no surprise at this point, but of course the Israelis did bomb the journalist guest house, and they killed 2 Al Manar journalists and 2 Al Mayadeen journalists and 1 Al Manar journalist. And they're constantly also sending death threats to the journalists that are working there. So it's pretty incredible that Ali Shoaib, worked there in southern Lebanon for so long. And, I'm sure he got many, many threats, death threats in the past over years or even decades. And so, anyways, just another barbaric act from the Israelis that sadly we're almost used to now, or we are used to. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
becoming the norm, right? Go ahead, Karim.
No, I just want to mention that also in 2024 he was targeted, and I think his cameraman was killed in that targeting in like 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, and everything, like I said, is whitewash. Everything is justified. As long as the Israelis do it, I guess it doesn't matter, right? Whether it's journalists, whether it's paramedics, whether it's children, whether it's anyone, right, that fits the bill, then they will just call you terrorist, and I guess that's the end of that. But in any case, another very important thing that happened over the past 24 hours is, of course, Yemen. Yemen has decided to enter this war. From Israeli media reports, at least 2 attacks have been so far reported. Ballistic missile, I think ballistic and cruise missiles, you told me this, Karim. The Yemenis haven't really announced anything yet, although these attacks come just a few hours after the latest statement from Brigadier General Yahya Sari, the spokesperson for the Yemeni armed forces, in which he said, our fingers on the trigger and that we will join this battle. I think the conditions he gave were if the escalation continues against the resistance axis, if more forces, if more nations join with the US and Israel on the war against Iran, if the conflict spreads to the Red Sea. And there was a fourth one that I am not very much remembering at this point. I'll look it up in a second. But again, Karim, what do you know of Yemen's intervention so far, their entry into the war?
Yeah, Yemen threatened to enter the war since day 2 or day 3. It's not the first time. And yesterday they mentioned that they are close to enter the war. And one of the important things is that if the infrastructure of Iran was bombed, and also if a new country joins, and also it's not about only Iran for the Yemenis, and they were very clear in their statement. It's also about Palestine, it's also about the Iraqis, it's also about Hezbollah. So they mentioned these 4, and also as I said it, everybody was waiting for Yemen to enter, and of course the Yemen entering the stage will accelerate many things. So here, if you look at this map, I prepared this map just recently to explain for our viewers. So the importance of Yemen entering the war is not also only like targeting the southern of Israel as they usually do, or sending drones to Tel Aviv as they did previously in 2023 and 2024. But also the importance is that they have the ability, and they showed that it's very easy for them to block this area here, which is Bab al-Mandab. Let me just I want to make the mouse appears when I explain. 1 minute, sorry.
In the meantime, please make sure to hit that like button if you haven't yet. We really, really need your support in regards to that.
100%. That's it here. So yeah, sorry. Now I think the mouse will appear. Yeah, the mouse appeared. So the importance is here that this is a very, very narrow passage. It's the Strait of Bab el-Mandab, and also at its narrowest. Bab el-Mandab is around 8 kilometers for big ships, and in general is around 22 kilometers. And we have to know that around 15 to 14, it depends on the year and depends on the conditions. 14 to 15% of global trade passes through this strait, and also millions of barrels of oil passes through this strait. The importance of this also is that it accelerates what the Iranians want. The Iranians want the price of oil and energy to get more, exceeds $150, and also they want to the West to feel the pain as the Iranians are feeling the pain. They were very clear about that, and of course this accelerates it. And previously the Iranians threatened that if Iran infrastructure was targeted, we have the ability to close the Red Sea, and that's what they mean by it. And also let us not forget that around 4 to 5 million barrels of oil from Saudi Arabia is being exported through a pipeline, and it's landing here. And then the ships
east to west pipeline.
yes, east to west pipeline. The ships are going through the canal of Suez. So I think the Yemenis will be able to target or threaten to target such infrastructure in Saudi Arabia, and also this will also make pressure on the United States military and navy, because all their plans is to target Iran. Now they have other plans is to counter the Yemenis, and the Yemenis showed us that they were able to counter the Europeans and the Americans. The Americans fought Yemen for 2 months, and suddenly Trump went to the TV and said, we are done with Yemen, and they left them with the Israelis and the Yemenis.
He said they asked me for a ceasefire. They came back for a ceasefire.
Of course. And the funny part, not the funny part, sorry. And also, let us not forget, Yemen didn't stop targeting Israel until Hamas signed the deal with the Israelis and with other parties and countries. So now Yemen entering, they will not stop until Iran signs a deal. And Iran was also clear, all our allies will be part of the final deal, and the Israelis and the Americans should not be allowed to fight or bomb these countries, meaning Yemen, Iraq, Iran, and Lebanon. So yes, I just also one thing. I have also to explain what this also means. First, we have to see the military capability of the Yemenis. The Yemenis have, according to reports, and according to them, like 3 years ago, now we don't know what they have. Their missile and drone range was around 2,000 kilometers, which is this circle. So the Yemenis are able to target the whole of the whole area of the Red Sea into the Israel and also in the Gulf and other places, and they can target, as we see, all the Gulf countries that are now engaged in the war with the Israelis and the Americans against Iran. And also, if we look here, we see that the traditional route usually it comes from the east to the west to Europe. This is the traditional route. And now the ships, if this was completely closed or closed in the face of the Israelis and the Americans on the west, the ships will be forced to sail all this area and reach the Cape of Good Hope, and then they have to go to Europe. And this means that the ships should sail around 13,000 kilometers more than usual, and this usually takes around 12 days. And even for the Gulf countries, because we know that the Gulf countries, maybe they are getting stuff from Oman and exporting them by land. This also will create difficulties for these countries. And also, as I said, the most important thing that we will see on Monday, that the market prices will go higher, and this will accelerate what Iran wants, and also will get the Americans in the sea will face difficulties, especially operating in the Red Sea, because they have ships in the Red Sea. And also this should ring the alarm for Saudi Arabia, meaning that Saudi Arabia might not be able to export oil at all. Now we will see what will happen. The Israelis said that they will bomb Yemen. We will see what the retaliation will be. Will Yemen also treat the Gulf countries as if they are part of Israel, as Iran is doing, or no?
Karim, I want to put something on screen, if you don't mind, just very briefly. I will remove them up, okay? Because these are the conditions that I was mentioning. This is what Yahya Sari announced yesterday, right? And just so I can cover all the bases very quickly. He called on the U.S. and Israel to essentially respond immediately to international diplomatic efforts to halt the war, an immediate cessation of aggression against Muslim countries in Palestine, Lebanon, Iran, and Iraq, and the lifting of the unjust siege on Yemen, the necessity of implementing the Gaza Agreement and fulfilling its obligations. They also affirmed that their fingers were on the trigger for direct military intervention. if any, in any of the following cases: the joining of any other alliances with the US and Israel against Iran or the Axis, the use of the Red Sea to carry out hostile operations by the US and Israel against Iran or any Muslim country, the continuation of the escalation against the Islamic Republic and the Axis. And these are essentially the conditions. And I guess, they were met pretty quickly. Will, I have a question for you. And in this came actually, looking at Karim's map, seeing, how the Horn of Africa, it's right there. And we've known the movements that the UAE, that Israel and the US have made in recent months in that region in particular. What are the options that the US, in particular, that the US alliance, the US-Israel alliance have to deter Yemen this time around? Because last time we saw the ships, right, the vessels, that they had to flee. Oh, William is gone.
Yes, I can be William, yeah.
You can be William. That's my question, right? Like, what is new in regards to what can be done to deter Yemen this time?
Look, I don't think they can do anything because they tried, and you know how many operations they managed to do and how many coalition they did. The Europeans, the Americans, and the Europeans and the Americans, and all the coalitions failed. And also we know the famous statement from a Navy general in Germany. He said, "We never saw something like this. This was a very difficult thing. We never." Maybe you remember more than me, Esteban, this statement.
Clearly, I remember so clearly. It was a French. It was a French.
French.
Who said we were traumatized by the Yemenis. We need more ships. And then a U.S. commander also said we had to be on alert 24/7. We haven't seen this the pace of this battle since the Second World War. That was just Yemen. That was just Yemen against the U.S. and the EU ships.
Now we have to remember or to acknowledge that it's not only against Yemen, there's Iran also, and now they are alone without the Europeans, so it will be much harder on them to counter the Yemeni attacks or the Yemeni blockade of the Red Sea. And as I said before, sorry for the noises, as I said that now we have that the Strait of Hormuz, okay, controls around 20 to 25 oil and gas shipments or exports. And we have also now the Strait of Hormuz, with which many of energy shipments, meaning oil, gas, whatever, passes there. So now this war is not only affecting 20 to 25% of the markets. Now it's affecting around 30 and 35% of the markets, yes. Which the thing that the Europeans are trying to find a solution for. The same applies for Philippines and other places, and India. India is suffering because of this, and of course Japan. And we know that the United States took many decisions to counter the price increase in oil, but till now they tried. I don't know how many decisions or how can I say it, how
what else can they do, right?
Yeah, 100%. And also one thing today, which is very important, and I didn't see it in the media as it should be covered, which is that Thailand made a deal with the Iranians, and they accepted the terms and conditions of Iran. Today, the Prime Minister of Thailand said it. So now, I don't know the deal. There's no, now we don't have the exact
the terms
information, the terms. But of course, this is the first country or a big country that makes a deal with Iran and bypasses the Europeans and the Americans and all these countries.
Will, what I was asking you is just essentially, in your thoughts, what could be another thing that the U.S. can do, especially now, when you consider for example, the recognition of Somaliland, right, by Israel, or the troops that are thinking Djibouti right now. I mean, what's your take on what would be the next step to counter Yemen?
Oh, well, that's, I'm not sure. As Kareem mentioned, the U.S. Navy tried to basically take out the Yemeni armed forces in the Red Sea during the last war in October, after October 2023. And they didn't have much success, and they basically had to turn around and turn and flee. So that is going to be difficult. But the trick is if not only the Strait of Hormuz is largely closed, but also Bab el-Mandeb as well. Also, as Kareem mentioned, it's just going to create additional supply chain issues that are already causing big problems in Asia, again, for South Korea, Japan, India, that import all of their oil from that part of the world. But also things like, the Qataris produced, in addition to natural gas, they produce a lot of helium and other chemicals that are needed for like chip production that Taiwan relies on. So, and then the fertilizer, there are all these shortages that are going to result, causing potential food shortages that could be pretty devastating for many countries, especially in the global south. So I guess one big question for me is how much longer this war will last, just because of the secondary effects that it's going to have on the rest of the world. I mean, there is a chance, of course, it could collapse the U.S. economy, but even more dangerous is what effect it'll have on the Asian economies, since, again, the U.S. is largely self-sufficient when it comes to oil. And, of course, the prices are going up, with world markets. But the U.S. still has this advantage where the U.S. can kind of take this short-term pain a lot easier than many other countries can, if all these really key strategic waterways remain closed. And the other thing is that, again, these supply chains will change over time. If it turns out that transporting oil and gas and other things through Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb becomes unreliable due to, if the war continues, it will redirect a lot of different energy flows. Again, in Asia, they're not going to want to buy Gulf oil and gas. They're going to have to switch to Russian and U.S. gas and oil. Mm-hmm. So again, so far the United States in this way and Russia have benefited a lot from the rise in oil prices. Again, not the average American, of course, but the big corporations that they are benefiting from it. And so we'll see what happens.
Guys, we have over 600 people watching, but a little under 400 likes. We really need to get a like to viewer parity here. So please help us out. Another interesting thing happened today, right? It's been a very eventful past 24 hours. And, I don't know how, let me just show you this video, right? Volodymyr Zelensky doing his best impression of a little buff boy. If anybody's a fan of I Think You Should Leave, he just visited UAE and Qatar, where he also signed defense cooperation agreements with both nations. Yesterday, he signed a defense cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia. But at the same time, before I get your guys' thoughts on this, I just want to show you this headline. This is what Russian media is reporting today. Apparently, and this is according to the commander of the Iranian armed forces, Iran wiped out an entire anti-drone warehouse in Dubai with over 20 Ukrainian experts inside. What a interesting timing. I mean, that Zelensky is, touring the Gulf at the same time as we are hearing that the Pentagon is looking to redirect their the arms shipments that they were set for Ukraine to West Asia, right, to continue fueling this war. I mean, I just want to hear you guys' thoughts, honestly, on Zelensky in the Gulf and what does this mean for the Gulf? Because also there's that soundbite of Donald Trump yesterday that I have here, but we can listen to it in a couple of minutes. For now, just your thoughts on Zelensky in the Gulf.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, we talked about this yesterday. This is for me, this is insane. Means that the Gulf countries are doubling down. They are aligning completely with the West currently. We heard many voices. We had like many agreements that many people thought that there is a chance for Saudi Arabia or for the Gulf to shift from the West, but apparently they can't. Currently, we have two wars, and the two wars are between Russia and Ukraine and between the Gulf countries, Israel, United States, and Iran. And it's clear who is taking which side. So I think this also, if Russians are not helping Iran and intelligence today they will start doing it. That's what I have to say. But also, as I said before, Ukraine is a very important country in manufacturing and countering also drones. They are one of the best, of course, after the war that has been ongoing for 4 years. And but also, it's not that easy just to get a drone from Ukraine and go fight Iran. You know what I mean? They need months, at least, let's say 2 months, to start using such drones, maybe, unless they will bring Ukrainian mercenaries to operate them from the Saudi and Gulf soil. We will see what will happen there. And as I mentioned, I don't think Russia will not like retaliate or do a counter actions regarding this. Maybe they will do in Ukraine or aiding Iran in a way and another, because now it's clear, yani. And this also makes us like maybe inches closer to a World War III, because many analysts thought that there might be World War III, and I think this is one of the indications. Now we have a European country, okay, and we have the United States, and we have regional countries, the Gulf countries, in addition to Iran, and also we have the occupation forces that are also mostly Europeans, which is Israel, in the war. So now it's expanding.
Will, what are your thoughts on this situation?
Well, it's a really interesting development, because there is this issue of the United States and its allies using the very expensive missile interceptors like Patriot missiles that we know are in short supply. The U.S. has been having to redirect those missiles from Ukraine and from South Korea, for example, towards Israel and to the Gulf states. And the Gulf states have complained that the U.S. has not supported them sufficiently. So the Ukrainians coming into the war is important, because they've been countering Russian drones, for years now, and the Russians have had to do the same thing from the Ukrainians. I mean, that war is largely just a drone war. And so the Ukrainians presumably have a much cheaper ways or cheaper interceptors that they are producing on their own to take out the Iranian drones. So it could be a big boost to the Gulf states if the Ukrainians are really able to provide substantial help and kind of change that math, where instead of using, again, the very expensive, difficult to produce US-made interceptors, they can shift to these Ukrainian ones, and that could be a big benefit to the Gulf. But what's interesting is that when Trump was asked about that, and he basically kind of just shoved the suggestion aside, like, oh, like Zelensky can't help them, Ukraine can't help them, and he really like kind of spoke against this idea of Ukraine helping, which seems kind of weird. Again, I'm just getting the feeling more and more that the Gulf countries are kind of being hung out to dry by the U.S. and Israel, and that almost like the U.S. and Israel want the Gulf countries to just get destroyed, and at least if they don't, pay some money to the U.S. and Israel for additional protection. Again, mafia-style tactics. So I just keep remembering the comments from the Omani journalists who said that it had been leaked that the U.S. Was demanding, trillions of dollars from the Gulf states in order to, keep defending them. And then there were these strange comments by Trump. I think it was just today, where he was talking about Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi ruler, where he talked about.
We can listen to it, because I have it queued up right here. I think we can play it, and then you can continue with your thoughts, just so that people I think some have already listened to this, but I'm sure some others haven't. So let's just listen to it very quickly.
And that we just discussed, the future king of Saudi Arabia, and I also love the king of Saudi Arabia. What a man he is. When I was there, we bonded. He would grab me to get up. He was a little frail at the time, and this was a long time ago, and he's still doing well. And he'd grab my arm to get up when I was sitting next to him. And they said that's the only time he's ever grabbed anybody. He would grab me all the time. And I said, I think he likes me. And he did like me, and he still likes me. And he's a great man, and say hello to him. He's a great guy with a great son. But a short time ago, we were together, and he looked at me, and he said, it's amazing. 1 year ago, you were a dead country. Now you're the hottest country anywhere in the world. He didn't think this was going to happen. He didn't think he'd be kissing my ass. He really didn't. He thought he'd be just another American president that was a loser, where the country was going downhill. But now he has to be nice to me. You tell him he better be nice to me. He's got to be. But it was really something.
Just I want to comment something, because also in the media they're not saying this. He said this while he was participating at a Saudi investment forum in Miami. Just imagine, yani, it was not like, oh,
the cherry on top. So
that's why he said, say hi to him. He's talking this to Saudis in front of him. Just like let this sink in.
Very important, very important. So, Will, having heard that, please finish your thoughts about the relationship, the strange relationship.
Well, so again, it just raises the question of whether the U.S. and Israel are using this war to basically extort the Gulf and get them to become even more subservient and just, basically steal as much money from the Gulf as they possibly can. And again, Qatar's, their situation has become much worse with their natural gas facilities being bombed. And again, there are many reasons for the Ukraine-Russian war, but one of them was that the U.S. wanted to force Europe to start buying American LNG rather than Russian gas coming through the Nord Stream pipeline. And Qatar benefited from that at the time. But now, if the U.S. can get rid of Qatar, which is the third largest LNG producer, again, that just allows the Americans to take even bigger market share. And again, if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, it's just going to, for a long period of time, it's just going to encourage the Gulf countries, or kind of force them to start, again, building pipelines going west through Israel. And Israel really wants to be like, the new energy hub in the Eastern Mediterranean. They probably want to steal the gas off the coast of Gaza. They're trying to even increase their share of the gas off the coast of Lebanon. Yeah. And they want to, kind of become this energy hub there. So anyways, that just to me is very interesting, where it just seems like the U.S. and Israel are literally trying to punish the Gulf states. And that's something that I hadn't expected.
Yeah, but the problem, or I don't know if you, Esteban, or William have a comment or a logic explanation. Partially, I agree, to a big extent with William, but why still the Gulf countries following the United States? I think the leaked information is correct that still the Saudi Arabia and UAE are pressuring even Trump to hit harder on Iran. Are they that delusional? Even if they hit harder, this war will not end like as they expect, and they know this more than any other people, because they pay politicians in Lebanon, for instance, to fight and to counter Hezbollah, and they know how Hezbollah is really resilient. They fought Bashar al-Assad for 14 years. And they were like resilient, and they like paid billions of dollars. The same applies to Iraq. The same applies to Hamas and to Gaza. So why would they think that Iran will disappear? Until now, Hezbollah didn't disappear. Till now, Hamas didn't disappear. You know what I mean? Till now, the Houthis, they fought the Houthis 10 years. And Houthis, not to underestimate them, but let's say at least they have let's say 20% of the power of Iran, and they have like 10% of the geography of Iran. I think I don't know. Are they just like committing suicide, for instance, politically?
I don't know.
Yeah,
honestly,
again,
William, what do you think? Go ahead.
Again, I just think they're being extorted or threatened to some degree. It's probably not voluntary. And these comments saying that they really want the U.S. to strike Iran harder, maybe those reports are just propaganda, or maybe they have no choice but to say that. Somehow they have their back against the wall and they have only bad choices, maybe. But yeah, it's hard to know.
I feel like we're entering that that region, right, in which is like maybe it's just the devil, and because I think this is something that many analysts have highlighted, right? Like the U.S. troop presence in the Persian Gulf always sought to protect the monarchies as well as the way that the energy will flow to protect the petrodollar. And but to protect the petrodollar, you need to protect the Sauds. You need to protect the monarchs of the UAE. You need to protect the family in charge of Kuwait, etc., Bahrain, where they are brutalizing protesters. They're brutalizing their own citizens who are coming out in support of Iran. I like, honestly, I don't know. I feel like this is just a global phenomenon because I see it everywhere. Just like this steepening compliance, and just like this complex of being, the doormat, just being the doormat of the U.S. empire. We see it in Latin America, we see it in Asia, we see it with these Arab monarchies, and that I guess they still think that after all of this is over and the dust settle, they can just go back to February 27th, and be like, again, Dubai will become, the hub of everything that's wrong in the world, and then like Saudi Arabia will become, there's little plans for the World Cup and all of that that's coming down the line. I don't know. Honestly, it's like they just still can't read the room, and it's this overt reliance on the U.S. I mean, to host Zelensky like this, and what is that? Like, how is Russia going to be taking that? And just in the sense of what Saudi Arabia is doing, I do have to wonder, do they even care anymore about the rapprochement that they signed in 2023? Does it matter anymore? Like the Chinese sponsored agreement to ease tensions with Iran? Because the realities changed completely.
Yeah. Again, all these leaders of countries that are allies or clients of the U.S., they can benefit from that, but these leaders are expendable. If the U.S. or Israel wants to get rid of you, they can do that. I mean, that happened famously to Manuel Noriega in Panama in the 1980s, who was a CIA asset for such a long time. And then the U.S. turned on him and invaded Panama. Saddam Hussein, for a time, was an American asset. And the United States turned on him before the 1991 Gulf War, kind of almost goaded or baited him into invading Kuwait. And then the U.S. got rid of their own allies, Hosni Mubarak and bin Ali and Ali Abdullah Saleh in Egypt, Tunisia, and Yemen, respectively, during the Arab Spring, which again threw a lot of people off. They said, how could the Arab Spring be like a U.S. creation or a U.S. operation if U.S. allies were being overthrown? But that's in fact what was happening. So Mohammed bin Salman, I mean, he, who knows, if he doesn't do what the United States and Israel wants, maybe, he'll end up in a box, cut into 30 pieces. So that might be the type of pressure he's under right now. It's hard to know.
Honestly, but what we can also talk about is and actually let me just very briefly, because somebody's asking, I think somebody's doesn't agree with us, of course, about Iran's retaliation to the Gulf. I would just direct them to go to our homepage at thecradle.co and find the latest article by Aidan Simardon, which is titled, let me find it, International Law is on Iran's side. So why is the UNSC blaming the victim? Go ahead and read that one, because it's a great breakdown of exactly why Iran is retaliating on the Gulf nations and why it is actually acting within international law to retaliate against nations that have proven themselves to be accomplices in the aggression against Iran. But nevertheless...
And also, I want you to mention the interview also that we published yesterday with Ali Jazini, because it also explains how and why the United States are using the Gulf land to bomb Iran.
Exactly. So, since we are talking about the retaliation, it's also very important. Yesterday, we were joking when we were doing the podcast about how, as soon as the podcast is over, the shit hits the fan. And boy, did it. Because the Israelis bombed 2 Iranian steel manufacturing plants. They bombed, I think we talked about this yesterday, but then they also hit at maybe 3 times it was the Bushehr nuclear reactor. The vicinity of it, very close to it, which of course it is my reading of the situation is what led to Yemen to enter, this escalation in particular. And of course, we saw the retaliation from Iran, which included targets in Israel, in Qatar, in Oman, in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, I think, as well. They hit a huge aluminum plant in the UAE just today. What's it called? Emirates Global Aluminum said that the Al Tawila plant in Abu Dhabi was hit. And the other thing that was hit was Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, where Western media is reporting that at least 12 U.S. service members were injured, as well as this particular plane, which is a very, very important asset for the United States. Apparently, it was damaged during Iran's attack there in Saudi Arabia. So, Karim, I don't know if you know any more about about the retaliation that Iran took over the past 24 hours in the Gulf.
Yeah, the point is that in the Gulf it's so difficult to find any video or any information. But for instance, Kuwait only released one video of them countering. I will put it on the screen later. Countering a fire inside an airport, for instance, because they want in their media and the propaganda that they are applying, and the only thing that they can say apparently is that they only show if there's a fire in civilian places. They don't tell you that this airport might be hosting or receiving American soldiers or other assets for this war. For instance, they don't see you any base that has been targeted, and we know Kuwait had a big chunk of drones and missiles. The censorship there is insane. For instance, the UAE, and I think after 3 days, they jailed even a British citizen who was 60 years old, and in Kuwait they jailed also many people from Bangladesh and India and also Bahrain. They said that they are going to execute 7 people that filmed a video in Bahrain or several videos. I think 2 of them are Pakistanis and the rest are Bangladeshi. I didn't follow up. I don't know what happened, if they released them or no, but this is very serious in the Gulf. It's very difficult for us to know what's happening there. We have to rely on the statements of the IRGC, who they said and threatened that they are bombing factories, steel factories, and concrete factories in these areas. And in Israel also, till now, Iran is sending missiles to the south, which also is not a very populated area, but it's called there the manufacturing hub of Israel. They are targeting this area every now and then. And just today, I think before we came, they announced that I think like 10 were injured and 1 was killed during such attacks in the south. Yeah, so that's what's happening. And of course, we are still in the escalation ladder. Today, Yemen joined, and today the factories are being destroyed. And regarding what William said, yes, I think what's happening is weakening the whole Arab world. Even the people that are with and are not with the Israelis and the West are being weakened. The whole Arab world is being weakened, and the Muslim world, of course. We have Lebanon is devastated. Syria, we all know what happened in Syria. In Iraq, till now, they didn't recover, and they are still somehow under occupation since 2003. Now, every single Gulf country is being targeted, and also Yemen is also torn, still a war-torn country. Yeah, it's insane what's happening in West Asia. The fires are all over the place. And I want just to mention before I stop talking, because I talked a lot today, is what Hakan Fidan said. I think it is very interesting. I know I don't trust the Turks and Erdogan, but what he said was very logical, was very interesting. Hakan Fidan is the foreign minister of Turkey, and he previously served as the head of the intelligence in Turkey. He said that what's happening now is all an Israeli plan, and we have to be cautious about that. And he blamed, of course, the Israelis. And he said that it's a well-designed plan that is targeting the whole Arab world and Muslim world, and we have to be cautious about that. And knowing that, I think now also Pakistan called for a meeting with Egypt and Turkey and Saudi Arabia. We'll see if this meeting will be fruitful, because I don't think Egypt, although I know I talk a lot against Sisi, but there's a doctor in Egypt. They know what Israel is capable of doing, and they were occupied. Part of Egypt was occupied by Israel, and of course, I think Turkey. I think we talked about it many times, Esteban. I think if they didn't went into public, Netanyahu and the media and officials in Israel and said that Turkey is next, I think Turkey will be 100% against Iran in this war. But now they are alarmed that if Iran is weakened, we might be next. And who thought like 4 or 5 years ago that Iran will be bombed as we are seeing now? You know what I mean? The same things might apply to Turkey. They might make a big issue in Turkey that will allow them to bomb directly or to use other factions to weaken Turkey. So we'll see what will happen.
It's an interesting read what you just said. We might put in Will. He's back. He's having some a little issues with his phone. It's the stance that Turkey has taken publicly, given to Israel's so overt, so many overt threats that they make against Turkey, against Pakistan also. It's also, you also need to take it with a pinch of salt, though, because we know how Turkey acts. But, Will, I'm actually glad you're back, because actually before we get into it, I just want to mention this very quickly. This just came out. We just published this. As we are speaking, multiple areas across Iran are under attack. Israel and the U.S. have hit many areas, including a drinking water storage facility in Khuzestan. So obviously, as Karim said, we are caught in the escalation ladder. And just yesterday, the IRGC declared that this is no longer an eye for an eye, that the escalation is going to be a lot more severe moving forward. And it's actually, that kind of brings me to what I want to ask you, Will. Before we started, news broke out that the residence of Masoud Barzani in Erbil came under attack by drones, I think. I'm trying to see if I can find. Yeah, here it is. Let me put it on screen very quickly so we can take a look at it. Drone strike that targeted the residence of the president of the Iraqi Kurdistan region early on Saturday. And air defense systems apparently intercepted a drone near a Peshmerga base in Duhok. Okay, so Will, you're pretty familiar with this region of Iraq and its politics. What is the significance of today's attack? And also, maybe you can give us just a bit of context of where the Barzani government stands in regards to the war.
Well, yeah, so that strike took place in Duhok, which is in northwest of the Iraqi Kurdish region. So it's on the other side from the Iranian border. I was just there about 3 days ago, so I barely missed it. But it is a little bit strange in that the Iraqi Kurdish leadership, they've been at least publicly saying that they want to stay out of the war. And, the U.S., there were all these reports in the U.S. media and in the Israeli media that the Iranian Kurdish groups that are based in northern Iraq would be joining the war on the side of the U.S. and Israel, and they would invade basically under the cover from Iraq into Iran, basically under the cover of U.S. and Israeli air power. But so far that has not happened yet. And again, the Iraqi Kurdish leadership have been saying, hey, we just want to stay neutral. We don't want any part of this. But nevertheless, the Iranians and the popular mobilization units have been hitting targets in Erbil. There have been a lot of drone strikes in Erbil hitting U.S. military facilities and also hotels where U.S. service people have been staying. But this is a little bit different in that these are purely Peshmerga targets, and then again the house of the president of the Kurdistan region, Netravan Barzani. So it's an interesting escalation, and I don't know if that means that potentially the Iraqi Kurds, despite publicly saying that they're staying out of it, in fact they are preparing to help the U.S. and Israel. Again, there are close intelligence ties between the Kurds in Iraq and the Israelis. going back to the 1960s, and there's Mossad bases all over northern Iraq and the Kurdish areas, and again, lots of U.S. troops there. So again, there may be things happening under the surface that led to the Iranians striking the president's house that we just don't know yet. Although one other thing potentially are the idea of false flags that the Israelis possibly hitting.
We've seen many, right? These past few weeks.
What happened today in Oman?
And in Azerbaijan, for example.
Yeah, as well, yes.
So that could be something too. Maybe the Kurds are trying to stay out of it in Iraq, and the Israelis and the Americans are going to try to force them to join in using false flags. So I, to be honest, I don't know which one it is yet, but it is an interesting development.
Also interesting development very quickly, and I feel like they might be more connected than than many might anticipate, is this. The Central Command just announced that the USS Tripoli has arrived to their area of responsibility. This is carrying 3,500 sailors and Marines who were deployed earlier today, while at the same time, the Gerald Ford, that floating latrine that cost $13 billion, it's in Croatia. So essentially, I think it just keeps getting further away from the area of the war. In any case, now you have the Marines there. The paratroopers are headed there. I think more Marines are also on the way. If this is actually a false flag in the Kurdistan region, then maybe it stands to reason that this is trying to push them towards letting them try to enter Iran through that region. Because actually, I was reading earlier today several analysts saying the only way that the U.S. can currently land on Karsh Island, it's airdrop. Like they need to come from the sky. They can't come from the water, and of course they can't come from land. So I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there.
Yeah, exactly. We still don't know what they are trying to do. Iran is not a small country. Many people are talking about this island because it's a very important island, a small island. But Iran has like dozens of islands, and one of them are very big, bigger than Qatar and Bahrain, for instance. They have several ones. We don't know what exactly they want to do. Iran has 3,000 kilometers of coast, which is around 1,800 miles. It's a huge. Maybe they will go from the north. Nobody knows. But the indicators or the even analysts, they are saying, the experts there, they are saying that there might be a airdrop. But also, to be honest, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 soldiers are you can't occupy anything in Iran with such number, to be honest. And the country is huge. Millions are want to fight. Yesterday I was watching at 3 a.m. in Iran. There was thousands of people in the streets just waving the flag of Iran, and it was raining and snow is falling. And these people are different than the West and the other people in the region, especially in the Gulf. So making an airdrop, maybe a fast airdrop, to maybe people are suggesting that maybe the Israelis and the Americans know where the 450 kilograms of uranium is. Maybe they will try to get them, but just landing in any place in Iran, whether it's on the coast or an island, it's like it will be a catastrophe for the United States. They can't maintain it. You want logistics, you want them to eat, for instance, give them ammunition, communicate. It's really, for me, it's really impossible. They might surprise us, but illogic that they can maintain any place in Iran currently. And they can't even stay in the Gulf, which is 300 kilometers away from Iran. It's another land. You know what I mean? It's not land. Across the sea. Yes, that's what it's 300 kilometers across the sea, and they can't stay where they are. Yesterday we talked in the podcast, and we said that they are renting villas, they are renting hotels. So how you will be able to like occupy part of Iran, even if it's in the sea, and maintain it? It's for me, it's impossible. We'll see what the end game will be.
Exactly. Do you have any final thoughts, Will?
Yeah, I mean, I've wondered about that too, because obviously they're not trying to occupy the entire country. You would need, 500,000 troops to do that or more. So, but that is the question. They have been talking about trying to occupy Kharj Island, where 90% of Iran's oil exports go through that island on the oil terminal there. And the U.S. has bombed that island, but they haven't bombed the oil infrastructure on the island. They've only bombed military infrastructure on the island. So it does seem like with sending Marines of this kind of small size, that maybe that's Trump's goal, is to take over Kharj Island and just try to get control of Iran's oil through that, which kind of mimics what they did in Venezuela. In Venezuela, they didn't try to occupy the entire country. They just kidnapped Maduro and then managed to take control of the oil without really doing much else. So, maybe that's the game that they're trying to play. I just can't see any other reason why they would be sending ground forces other than to do like a very kind of specific operation like that in no way tries to actually invade mainland Iran.
But
also
I have to agree with Karim. This is like dead in the water.
I'm not saying it's possible. It still sounds crazy, but that's in terms of just trying to think about what are they thinking. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, Mama. The point is, the problem in the current war is not that Iran is exporting or who exporting. The problem is that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. And even if they take 100% of the oil and gas of Iran, they can't export it. You know what I mean? Yani it's so weird. Yani I think if I was an American military person, God forbid, maybe they will try to do something here. Maybe launch a bombing campaign here and try to take this area and like make some ships pass maybe in 1 or 2 days, and they will like declare victory or whatever, or show put Iran in a very bad image. But taking this area here, I don't know. We will see. We have Trump. Trump is crazy. We will see.
One thing is to take it, another thing is to hold it. And I feel like they're very focused on the first one, and I still don't really have an answer for the second one. But nevertheless, as we have seen over the past, I mean, today is a month. Is the first month of this war, of a war that was supposed to last 4 days. Of course, it didn't go that way. Now Donald Trump, just keeps stepping into it. And I mean, we will continue to bring you the news as they happen. Of course, I think we can wrap it up for today. I want to thank, of course, Karim and Will for joining me, and to everyone who joined today. Please, before you go, if you haven't yet, make sure to hit that like button. It's really, really important to fight against the algorithm. Also, after this video is over, make sure to leave a comment underneath. It not only uplifts our spirits, but also it helps get this video out to more viewers. In the description below, you can find a link that will take you directly to our Patreon page, where for as little as $5 a month, you can become a direct supporter of The Cradle. Please, if it's within your means, consider it. And of course, a very special thanks to all of our Patreons. And with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Karim. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Don't forget to watch yesterday's interview. I will link it in the description below. It's with military expert Ali Jazine. He's Lebanese and he knows really well the resistance and how they fight and how they act. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Over 4 years in, and despite all the censorship, website attacks, and war across West Asia, The Cradle hit 1 million monthly readers in 2025. And we couldn't be more grateful. Up until this moment, you've had access to all our work for free. Over 30,000 articles, including investigations, analysis, interviews, news content, videos, podcasts, and more. All of this without paywalls, without harassing you and hunting you down for donations. But now it's do or die. December 31st, 2026 is the deadline for The Cradle to become completely reader funded, because that's the model all media should have. When readers pay for your content, it means media outlets live or die based on whether they're producing reliable, intellectually stimulating information analyses that simply isn't available elsewhere.
يعني يلا